The NBA season is nearly off to the races, and we got a first look at the new Sixers in day one of the preseason, which they faced off with the New Zealand Breakers. Jared McCain, the 16th overall pick, was near the top of the list for players that impressed the most, and we've seen a lot from him this preseason, not just in Summer League, not just in the preseason as a whole, but a ton of social media content, a ton of behind the scenes, and it got me thinking a little bit for why this is the case from the Sixers standpoint. And my ultimate takeaway now is I think there's a real chance that the Sixers are viewing Jared McCain as a potential trade chip to push them over the edge when we get to the trade deadline portion of this. That ultimately, Daryl Morey's been all about keeping his options open, keeping his flexibility, and I want to dive into what specifically has me thinking this way. But first, let's reflect on what exactly went down in his debut in the preseason there, that ultimately we saw Jared McCain finish with 15 points, 7 rebounds, which was the most on the Sixers, had 4 3-pointers made, 3 assists there. He also debuted a little bit of the no-dip 3-pointer. He talked a little bit after the game and speaking about it, saying, quote, "It's something as a smaller guard you have to be able to do. You have to have a quick release with everybody being so tall in this league, but it's something I've been working on for a while now, and it's nice that it's shown." So a nice little cool moment here, and obviously something that he made the shot, so that is the most important thing. I do think that is a very valuable weapon for offensive players in the league. Nico Batum obviously being kind of the driving force for who's been doing it for quite some time. But for McCain specifically, I thought he looked really good. But when looking at the game as a whole, did want to pull this up here, McCain leading the pack with 27 minutes played. Looking beyond him, that Ricky Council, the fourth, logged 22 minutes, and then no other player with more than 17 minutes in it. And then when you factor in how forward-facing we've had Jared McCain in front of the cameras, it is kind of something that brings a couple questions to mind. Think back. Did that ever happen with Tyrese Maxey? Did that ever happen with Jaden Springer? We haven't seen a guy who is yet to play a true NBA game that we know so much about. And I wanted to follow this up with kind of what I'm talking about, an example here. Shout out to the Sixers social media team who's been absolutely crushing it. This is an interview after the game between Lauren Rosen, Adem Bona, and Jared McCain here. So I'm going to pull this up and we will talk a little bit after.
Jared, Adem, your first run in a Sixersy. How did it feel to get out there tonight?
That was the most insane I've ever felt in my entire life. I was nervous, excited, but the best feeling ever.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was nervous on the bench the whole time, but to get out there, get out of the way, to play first game of the Sixers, it was an amazing time for me.
Your co-rookie played 28 minutes tonight, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. He hit 4 threes. How'd your friend do out there?
Great. I was looking up. He had the most rebound on the team today. And I was so long. You can't be doing that, but he did really good. Hit the trees. That's what he does. So I'm happy.
And your buddy Adem joined you out there in the second half. What'd you think about his game?
And it was just great seeing my brother out there play aggressive, play like the Bona on. I need him to get a dunk soon, but that's coming soon for sure.
Come on, in the game.
When?
Bro, right?
So for starters, both these guys seem like absolute delights. I think both Bona and McCain have a case for giving Tyrese Maxey a run for his money for the most likable player on the team. But when factoring in how we got here, when Jared McCain was drafted with the 16th overall pick, let's flash back to the point in the offseason. Let's not forget that this Sixers team entered the offseason with only Joel Embiid under contract. It looks great now that the puzzle has been put together, now that the contracts have been signed for all these names, but there was a point in time where things were looking bleak for what is next for this team. Now, when did the draft come into play? Before free agency even started. And when you flash back to that draft night, these two are going to be paralleled for the entirety of the career, unfortunately, is that the Sixers elected to draft Jared McCain over Dalton Knecht there. And at the time, that got me thinking that for this Sixers team, which is clearly in win-now mode with Joel Embiid, there's a strong case to be made that Dalton Knecht made more sense for the Sixers team. Now, when factoring in the position and the big swing that they wanted to take, what does Jared McCain do that Dalton Knecht doesn't? For starters, he's 3 years younger. He's a guy with a little more pedigree as a recruit. Knecht being a guy who went through worked his way up the college ranks, was an under-recruited guy, not a guy with a ton of pedigree. Then contrast that with Jared McCain, a guy who's been Mr. Basketball in California, who's been a top recruit for just about the entirety of his lifetime, played at Duke, is a guy who has a clear-cut skill set and a little more youth on his side. That's a guy that's a little more appealing from a wide-scale NBA standpoint. That when you are factoring making a big-time trade, there's going to be more teams that are interested in Jared McCain than there is in Dalton Knecht, at least in the short term when speaking to potential. Now, that may have been the logic at the time. Ultimately, the best-case scenario happened for the Sixers team, that Paul George was able to sign on the dotted line. There was no trade that needed to be done. But say that Paul George didn't. Say that he decided he wanted to keep his talents in Los Angeles, stay playing for his hometown team. then all of a sudden we're talking about either trading for Brandon Ingram or making one of these blockbuster deals to truly complete this team. That is where the McCain logic comes in. But ultimately, the best case scenario did work out. Now, looking at how things currently are, I want to say that I'm not in favor of doing this. This is not something I'm pushing or want to happen. From a basketball standpoint, I'm pretty impressed with the skill set that Jared McCain has. And looking back at his college stats, he was a 14.3 point per game scorer, averaged 5 rebounds per game, which is really impressive for his size there, 1.9 assists, and most importantly, shot 41.4% from 3 on fairly high volume, 5.8 attempts per game there. That's pretty good for college overall. He's also been spoken really highly about by his teammates and coaching. To pull up what Nick Nurse is saying, he said, quote, "McCain can get him up. He can find himself in space to get open. Pretty decent drive game on top of it. He plays hard. He's super engaged on both ends, and he provides a three-point threat with his quick release." He also, Nurse had mentioned previously,
Jared, Adem.
speaking about how McCain kind of has a knack for being the guy that comes out of the pile with the ball. When there is this skirmish for the ball or guys are jumping on top of each other, he's one of those guys that just finds a way to come up with it. I think that's a great trait to have, something that will do him well for the future of his NBA career. Even Tyrese Maxey has spoken really highly of what he's seen from Jared McCain. They squashed the little beef of McCain calling him his vet at a time, that Tyrese still 23 years young himself, still plenty of growing there. But he talked a little bit about the defensive side of the ball following the preseason game, and it said, while evaluating Jared McCain's performance, Tyrese Maxey caught himself in a rare position to be a mentor defensively. Quote, "He was good, made shots. We talked a little bit about impacting the body defensively. It's crazy, me saying that." And to Tyrese's credit, taking massive strides forward in this area of growth, that I will bang the table and claim that this guy is an above average NBA defender at this point in his career, which was absolutely not the case when he first came to the league. So shout out to Tyrese for putting the work and improving in just about everything, as he is clearly proven to do. Now, Jared McCain is a guy who seems cut from that same mold. I'll say personally that I had a chance to interview Jared out in Las Vegas at Summer League. Awesome dude, awesome guy, and a guy that I like as a basketball player as well. But from the Sixers standpoint, I do think there's a little too, they're in evaluation mode, that they brought in all these new pieces. Yes, they brought back some of the guys, the Tyrese Maxeys, the Kelly Oubre, the Kyle Lowrys. There's guys that will continue to be here, but there's a lot of new faces, from Caleb Martin to Eric Gordon to Gershon Yabusele. There's a lot of players, Paul George, cannot leave him out, of course, that are going to make their impact felt on this team. And I think Daryl Morey is in the mode of, let me sit back, let me evaluate, and let me see what this team needs. But when really zooming out and thinking here, it's pretty strange to me just how forward-facing Jared McCain has been. Now, sure, you can make the case that some of that is because of his social media, because of what a forward-facing presence he is as a human being, that we have not drafted a guy who's been a TikTok star before. I think that's a pretty unique circumstance that the Sixers are kind of working their way through. So maybe they're just really leaning into that. But it does feel like to me that they're making it well known and pushing the positive vibes of Jared McCain. The fact that he played almost, 6 minutes technically, really almost 10 minutes, really 11 minutes if you take out Ricky Council the fourth there, more than any other player in the game in preseason game 1, that is something that's a little strange to me. The way that he is this guy that is being pushed on social media as heavily from the Sixers angle as he is, that is a little weird to me. That again, we did not see that with Tyrese Maxey. We did not see that with Jaden Springer. We did not see that with some of these guys. So my fear is he turns into a little bit one of these Isaiah Joe type players. And Isaiah Joe, a whole separate case, who the Sixers didn't even get anything really in return from. That was to sign, a backup center that did not work out. You didn't get anything in return. But I do think if Daryl Morey is sitting there at the trade deadline, I'm thinking, what is the missing move to get this team over the hump? Maybe they truly do need a power forward. That Gershon Yabusele is not ready to fill those shoes in the way that we hope, or make that push for this whole time. I think Jared McCain might be a name that is floated out there a little more than a lot of us would like. Now, I will wrap this up by saying this is not something that I'm pushing for. That I think as a whole, the Sixers have been too willing to give up young talent. That I think you need to be really sure that that's something that's making you better as an organization if you are to make those types of moves. That I do think there's a world where you zoom out to the year 2028 or 2029, and we're talking about a potential starting backcourt of Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain. I do think that's a possibility. I think McCain can grow into more of a true point guard. I think both of them can be better defenders than the reputation states. Again, I would argue that Tyrese Maxey is already there, and Jared McCain, while his size is not there, he was a good defender defender in college. He's a guy who competes, moves his feet, is really physically strong. I do see the potential for him to grow there. So this isn't something I'm pushing for, but it's something that I just push you guys to just take a little bit of note as we move from here. There's obviously going to be way more concrete known about this as the season actually gets rolling, how much we see from him, how much he plays in the G League, how much he's continued to be showcased, and really what this Sixers team need is the overarching conversation here. That is the question of what changes things. But just a little bit of food for thought. That love Jared McCain, but keep him at arm's length a little bit. Know that this might not be the long-term relationship that we all think we're getting into, as it would not shock me if Daryl Morey is trying to pump that trade stock as high as he can possibly get it at this current point in time. But ultimately, let me hear from you guys in the comments. Do you think I'm onto something here? Do you think this is something that is likely, and would it be the right move for the Sixers team? I think I still sit here and say, unless you know it is the move that is going to get you better, that bringing in maybe a Bruce Brown or something like that in exchange for Jared McCain can win the Sixers team a championship, I kind of want to rock with the kid right now. That I do think that there's enough good things on the Sixers team. There's enough ways they can win that I'm not rushing to move him out of this organization. And I'm very excited and curious to see what he can grow into as an NBA player in the long run. Ultimately, we will see how all those questions are answered from here, but did want to float that out there, get some feedback, and feel kind of a vibe check on that. It continues to be strange for me how much Jared McCain that I see on my Twitter feed or from the Sixers specifically here. So it's kind of what led me to sparking up and recording this video here. So let me know if you guys are on the same wavelength as me. If you have any thoughts on the topic as a whole, make sure you smash that subscribe button if you have not already. Dropping a like on this video here, and I'll be talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.